Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those of you still on the fence, welcome back to another episode of Derailed, courtesy of Archaic Skids. I'm, of course, your host, Archaic Skids. We have with us a very special, very hilarious, and very intelligent guest, Talitha McKeechin. I hope I said that correctly. And we are going to have a conversation about reparations in America. Is it something that we might actually see in her lifetime? I don't know. We'll find out. How are you, Talitha?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. It's
Oh, it's my
Talitha.
pleasure. Talitha, my apologies.
You
Talitha.
okay?
Okay. My apologies for that. So introduce yourself to people.
Of course, my name is Talitha McKeechin, and I'm a writer. Been writing about politics for about 15 years now. I've written for um, the Yahoo News Network in the past. I wrote for Hurricanes, Kane TV, and a plethora of other websites as well. Um, but I write from the perspective of a Black Republican um, in general, and I happen to be a Black Republican who supports reparations for American descendants of chattel slaves. So that's who I am, and I write fiction and other things too. But
Awesome.
that's who I am, and that's me.
Awesome. Awesome. I found what it's, I can't remember the name of it right now. I just had it too. I guess your website. She's got a great website on WordPress. That's in the description, so you guys can go check out some of her work and follow
Oh
her.
yeah, it's conservative introspection.wordpress.com. So yeah,
That's
I
right.
do
That's
write
right.
about it. Yeah.
That's down in the description of this particular show, so you guys can just click on that hyperlink and it'll take you to her, and you can check out her work there, some of her work anyway. Also, we have her Twitter down in the description below, so you can follow her there. And then as well, she's very, very active on Clubhouse. So if you enjoy this conversation, you want to reach out to her and talk to her, that's a very good place to find her. That's where I found her. So, all right, let's jump into it. We met on Clubhouse. We were
Yes.
having a conversation about race relations and reparations and things of that nature. In Rather they should be paid, will they be paid? And you are not, when you said you're a Republican, conservative Republican, that's a little outside of their mainstream for you to be pro reparation. So let's just touch on that. What's that like to be in the party that you're in, and then go ahead and pull like an Olivia Rondeau and be pro reparations?
Yeah, it's different. It's not a popular opinion on the right wing. I have had conversations with other Republicans locally about it. Um, and what I've found is that Republicans who, acknowledge the debt owed and acknowledge reparations want to have, social programs as a form of reparations. I believe in cutting a check. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that as we have as a country with other atrocities that have happened. So it's a little lonely on the right. Most don't agree with me, with regards to that. But the main thing for me, the reason why I support it is because the economic argument has been made with regards to that. There is a racial wealth gap. That's a fact. There's nothing to debate with regards to that. There's a racial wealth gap, and America as a whole benefited from shadow slave labor, and there are many corporations, and as a country that got a head start because of the free forced labor. And I believe that even though, of course, slavery, of course, is no longer a part of our collective as Americans, I it didn't end with slavery. After slavery, there was also lynchings. There was also, 40 acres and a mule given to some. They were also,
Well, that was also then taken away from them.
yeah, they was also taken away from them. They were ran off the property, and
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff. There was, domestic terrorism committed against, former slaves. And then, even in the cases where we built our own wealth, and I'm thinking of all of the Black Wall Streets that existed, we just recently commemorated, what happened in Tulsa.
Right.
Whenever we pulled ourselves up by our own bootstraps and built wealth, it was taken away and burned down and all of these things. So it's a dead argument for me, for anyone who's just like, well, you pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. You did that. And domestic terrorism took place as a result. So in that light, I do support it fully, and support uh, candidates or anyone who's about that, because it just needs to happen in order to close the racial wealth gap and to even the playing field, essentially, economically, basically. So that's
Right.
my position.
So basically, it's an outlook of closing that. And basically, we got to heal that wound,
Yeah,
and the way to do that is to come to fruition with what was done. You said right there in the beginning that reparations is not new to this country; that it has been paid on several occasions to several different minority groups
right.
who had atrocities happen against them. Do you want to give people a couple of examples of that?
Yeah, I can give three. The under well, if a recent example is under Barack Obama, there were reparations paid to Holocaust survivors on this country, which is interesting because that didn't take place on this soil. The second one is of course, reparations and what has been paid out to Native Americans, which they absolutely deserve.
Right.
Let's be clear about that. They absolutely deserve that. The third is also the Japanese, who were interned in camps.
Mhm.
They were also paid reparations. I want to say they were paid about $30,000 a piece, something like that. But they were paid. So I don't understand what the huge problem is when it comes to, the descendants of chattel slavery. This country is just sort of passed the buck, or, well, they just kind of, gone on, gone on. And when I say go on without paying it, I'm talking about Congress. There's been a reparation bill, which is HR 40, on the books since 1989,
Mhm.
and it's a study, supposedly a study, um, of the whole situation when it comes to reparations. And that's every year it's been put on the congressional floor, and every year it's been, okay, we're going to study it. And that's the same thing that happened this year. They're going to study it again.
Well, and to be fair, when Congress says we're gonna, have a study, that's just them saying no.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
it doesn't. They're not saying. Oh, they don't actually mean, hey, let's really look at this thing. No, it's just their way of saying, yeah, no, not today.
Yeah, and they've been doing that since 1989. Um,
Right.
and even they've been doing that, even, and it hasn't mattered. The congressional demographics have shifted over the years. They've been dominant Democrat, and they haven't passed it. Barack Obama, not that long ago, spoke out against reparation, and he is not an American descendant of slavery. Um, and so that's just a telltale sign, because you have Congress being dominated by Republicans and Democrats, and it's shifted over the years. The first 2 years of Barack Obama's presidency, Democrats, were dominant in Congress. So neither party is really interested in the justice claim in that regard. So
Right.
congressionally, it's a problem, on both sides.
Well, I believe that reparations is kind of like Social Security in that regard. Both sides, it's a fourth wheel of government where or the fourth rail. They don't want to touch it because they don't,
Yeah, it's
well. Let's be
controversial.
honest. It really comes down to they're all cowards. They're just
Yeah,
cowards.
yeah,
They're looking out for themselves and
both
not for the
sides.
American people. Yeah, exactly. Both sides. in that are elected officials. The elected officials that do openly come out, and I don't care what side they're on. I will say, I guess, for a Republican elected official to come out for reparations probably shows more courage than Democrat. But there's so few of them on either side that it's like any one of them. It's like, okay, at least they're courageous. Yeah, I'll give them that. I want to go back just a second here, because I know that at some point we're going to get comments, and I've heard this plenty of times. And I think me and you even discussed slightly on Clubhouse that one of the number one things is that why should I have to pay for sins I didn't commit?
Yes.
And just as a blanket question, obviously it's a sensible question, but here's the thing. When you were discussing the Holocaust reparations, these were not paid to the majority of Holocaust survivors. It was paid to their families. When you discussed the Japanese reparations for the internment camps, this money was not given to the survivors that were in the internment camp. It was given to their children. And the reason behind it, according to the Congress, was that they lost a generation of wealth earnings based on that situation.
Right.
So that argument or that question it just doesn't hold weight anymore, because and to this day, now I will say this, the Native American population, a lot of people say, yeah, well, they're still on reservations. They are allowed to leave the reservation. So it's not like a prison.
Right,
they can leave. But we're still paying reparations to the ancestors of the people that the actual massive atrocity did take place. The worst of it took place. We're paying their ancestors these reparations. And I'm with you. We should. They did, it's 100%. I agree with you on that. But I just wanted to touch on that, because I know that you and I discussed somewhat about that they're saying, well, we're not paying the people that were harmed. We're paying their children's children's children. Your argument is that those children are being harmed by what took place then, correct?
Yeah, not by what took place then and what took place in the aftermath of the end of chattel slavery. It didn't end there. There's more harm that took place. Redlining.
It's another 125 years.
Yeah, so many things took place in the aftermath of that. Real quick, I want to quote one of my mentors and friends, and Stephen Barnes. He's a writer and mentor of mine. He wrote a book called Lion's Blood and the sequel Zulu Heart. And it is actually the reverse story of, what has happened in America. It is the story of Africans enslaving Europeans and in America. It's a very interesting story, very well written story. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he has always, said to me, and which is kind of the basis for him writing the book, was there's no such thing as a wound which takes less time to heal than it took to inflict. And
that's a deep point to be made right there.
Yeah. And I agree with him, and it's true. And so things didn't end with regards to chattel slavery. It didn't just end in 1865 with the Emancipation Proclamation. So much happened since then. A whole civil rights movement had to take place so we could vote and do just basic things as American citizens. Mm-hmm. So it didn't end there. So with regards to that type of response, well, I wasn't here. And here's the reality. Most white Americans, most immigrants in general, came here after chattel slavery was abolished. Right. That's a fact. However, this is my response to that. In America, we don't do the sort of a la carte taxes. We don't do that here. We never have. You pay your taxes, and your taxes go to a number of things you don't agree with. As a Republican, I don't agree with subsidizing Planned Parenthood. I don't agree with all this money we send to Israel every year, but guess what? I still
The
have to pay my
military
taxes.
industrial complex and
Yeah,
the bombing of Yemeni's children. Yeah, we pay for a lot
exactly.
of
Like,
shit we don't like.
yeah, we pay for a lot of stuff we don't like. So why is it that when it comes to reparations, now some people just want to, you know, I wasn't here, but okay, so you didn't do anything to Israel either, you know, or Palestine or anything. There are so many things that our tax dollars go to that we do not agree with. But for some strange reason, I'm not saying that no one has protested those things. I happen to be even stranger. I'm also a black woman who's Republican who also I don't agree with all the money we send to Israel, and that's a contentious topic.
Yeah,
However, we pay for all sorts of things that we don't agree with, and for some of us don't even know about. So don't single out reparations to be this thing that, hey, I wasn't here, or hey, I didn't do it, this, that, and the other.
right.
And be consistent if you're going to go there in terms of a position to have. Be very consistent and say that about X, Y, and Z as well. So the lack of consistency with regards to that position is a problem for me. So I don't, subscribe to that sort of belief. I don't trust people who naively, in my opinion, have that position because you don't speak out about all these other things that we pay for too.
Right.
We can afford it. We just spent millions and millions and billions of dollars, because of COVID. Um, and also,
Trillions,
yeah, trillions.
trillions. With
Yeah,
what the Fed
trillions.
created and what they injected into the economy, I mean, in all honesty, we're probably somewhere about 18 to 20 trillion dollars.
Yeah, and that's on top of the huge, huge trillions of national debt that we already have.
Exactly.
So that our children's 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 children, we be paying for. So
That's one of
that's
the
already
things
there.
I'm gonna say that's one of the things that's always been a point for me because I'm kind of a math nerd anyway. But when they say, well, it'll cost too much, and what about the debt? I'm like, we're $30 trillion in the hole. My great
Yeah,
great great grandchildren are not going to be able to pay for the debt that's being created today under me, or that was created under my father or his father before him. So
right.
when it comes to that being your argument, that's just bullshit. I don't even want to hear
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it is. And, it will take generations upon generations upon generations to, clear up the national debt. I don't know how long it would take. I don't know if there's an
Oh,
estimate on that, but
it's never going to happen.
gosh, it's just not going to happen. Yeah,
It
like there's
can't.
so
I
much.
mean, honestly, it can't. If you were to tax every single American 100% of everything, you still couldn't really do anything. You can't. It's too much now. Basically, default's your only option. I just pray that that doesn't happen
Right.
for a very long time.
Yeah, but ultimately, that's it. I don't foresee anything that could happen to change that. The debt is what it is. So don't tell me that we can't afford it because we can afford to pay so many other things when we need it, whether it's a national emergency or anything else. And
Hmm.
in the book From Here to Equality by Dr. William Darity, Sandy Darity, he's recently estimated the cost of reparations. I want to say it's around like 11 to 13 trillion dollars in order to do it.
Yeah.
So it's old, and
I believe the number that he stated was it was between 11 to 13 trillion inflation adjusted over
yeah.
time, because he's not looking. See, when you say that number, right? A lot of people are going to go, ah, and they're going to balk at
Oh
that
my
number.
gosh, yeah.
But here's the thing: in his notes, when he did the math on it, he's not looking at the slaves. He's not looking at those people that were slaves. He's also looking at, like you said, the shadow slavery and what happened to the descendants
Right.
following the actual slaves. So he's equating this value over the next 150 years. He's not equating it just to this time frame of
Just to the
this.
time frame. Yeah.
So that's important for people to understand that that number is so large because he's equating a valuation,
Right.
inflation-based valuation based on 150 years of this particular nonsense happening.
Yeah, and of course the numbers that how look how long it's been, and all the things that have taken place, and everything. And reparations is not a handout. It's not welfare, any of this nonsense that people
Well,
talk
no,
about.
if you get in a car wreck and you sue the other person because they caused it, that is reparations.
Well, yeah,
They're
absolutely.
repairing damage done to you, correct?
Right.
No one says, "Oh, you got in a car wreck and then you sued the other person because they caused it. Maybe they were drunk or something. I don't know." Well, that's just welfare. It's like, no, it's not. Shut up.
Yeah, and it's just such a silly and stupid thing to say, but some people view it that way.
Yeah,
It is. I view it as a labor dispute. You don't get to have a country built on the backs of shadow slaves and a free forced labor, and then now, and there are like I remember debating reparations even in college, and there are kind of three schools of thought. How There's the idea that the United States government should pay reparations. That's what I'm in favor of. There's the idea that corporations were built on slave labor should pay reparation. Corporations like Aetna and other insurance companies in particular. Aetna has actually entertained the idea of paying reparations, although none of these corporations have actually done it. But there have been corporations who've entertained that idea because they know they were built on slave labor, and the
it's kind of
records are
like
there.
billionaires that entertain the idea of raising taxes on billionaires, but then
Right,
also make sure that there's loopholes where they're not affected.
right. And
Yeah.
then there's the most unpopular idea, which you won't find many people who are in support of reparations in support of this, but there's also the idea that just white people should pay reparations. That's the most unpopular one. And I mean, I don't
Well,
know
that's because
anyone of
history
that school of
doesn't
thought.
work in their favor on
Yeah, I
that
don't
one.
know anyone that I don't know any. I know one person that kind of thinks that actually, but most of us don't think
In
that
order for
way.
that to work, though, then the historical facts would have to be based in only white people owned slaves, and that's just not historically factual. It would also have to say that only that no white people were slaves. That's also not historically factual. Now, numbers wise, I'm not going to have that conversation because we all know far more black people. I know they'll make an argument about the Irish, and there were a lot of Irish slaves. I understand. And then the Chinese that built the railroads, I understand that too. But it's just anytime I think, and I guess my argument here would be you are solidifying a factor against one race of people. And I think that just pushes against the idea of what it is, the wound we're trying to heal, right?
Right.
I think in 2 generations, then you've got these people that are still paying this debt, and they're going to go, this is not what I didn't do, you know what I mean? And it's just going to
Right.
cause a shift in the other direction. So I
Yeah.
like your first two plans much better. Let's put it that way.
Right. And I'm not a proponent of the third one. Like I said, that's the least popular. I know one person who thinks that way, out of all of the people that I know. But I want to clap back against you a little bit.
Okay.
So when it comes to, shadow slaves, of course you brought up the Irish and of course the Chinese and everything. Um, they weren't shadow slaves in the same sense that Black Americans were.
That's true.
Um, there are Irish historians who have debunked the whole myth of Irish shadow slaves. Um, there's a book called, what is it called? It's called When the Irish Became White or something like that. Because there was definitely a period of time in which the Irish were not really considered white in this country,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely a period of discrimination. I would never say anything other than that. But what happened to the Africans who were, sold and brought into this country and their descendants and everything is unique in that sense. So I'm going to only clap back to say that what happened with the Irish and what happened with the Chinese who built the railroads. That's not the same situation.
No,
As
I
us.
agree. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that a lot of people make that argument against the
Oh yeah.
only whites should pay it argument. That's where I was going with that. I'm not saying that it's based in
Okay.
anything that I
I just don't want to
you
equate all of those
know,
because
right.
they're,
No, I
yeah,
understand.
they're unique institutions.
This is one of the things that I've heard come up around these conversations too, and I want to get your feedback on this. And I've dug into it, and there is some historical accuracy and then some historical inaccuracy that I've found with some people's
Some
arguments.
bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that it was black people selling black people to white people. Now, there is some accuracy to that. There were some kings in Africa that were doing that. And then there were some that were just straight up bona fide stolen, right?
Yeah.
Just snatched up.
I happen to,
Um,
I happen to believe, I'll say this. I happen to believe that the overwhelming majority of Africans sold into slavery were sold into slavery. Like I don't buy the whole kidnapping argument. Of
well, when
course that
they were kidnapped by other tribes from
yeah, yeah, I
the
mean, yeah.
best sense of reading. It was warring tribes. When they would capture them, they would capture them, and then they would take them down and they'd sell them.
Yeah, and it's because when people make the argument, oh, we were all kidnapped, we kidnapped. To me, that makes no sense because this went on for centuries. Okay, so
Millennia.
yeah, you have to think really low of Africans, and you'd have to also elevate Europeans in the sense that you think they were that smart, that intelligent. They're not that they're dumb, but you
I
think
made
they're
an
so
argument
like
one
they,
time that said if a
yeah,
bunch
like
of
they're able
white
to
people
just
are walking across Africa,
right.
you think that the black people aren't going to run away and hide?
Yeah,
Come on now.
you think they're just so smart and intelligent that they were able to go into the interior of the west coast of Africa and to do this
And
thing to
just snatch
kidnap
people up.
people without anybody fighting back. You have to
Yeah, no.
think high of the European and you have to think low of Africans,
Right.
in order to believe, and that's bullshit to me. I think the overwhelming majority were captured by other Africans, sold into slavery. This is well documented.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. The comedian Wanda Sykes, in one of her stand-ups, she said, well, I never heard of no failed rescue missions. Like nobody was coming to, try to come and get
Yeah.
us and take us back.
Yeah, the
So
other warriors didn't show
yeah,
up at that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 100%.
So yeah,
It's one of those things that you hear, and you always hear it in the regard of maybe the sellers, right, should pay the reparations. Sure, there's an argument that could be made, I guess, except here's the problem. Those people still live in squalor too. Like, what are you doing? That
yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Not to mention, they're not the ones that benefited long term from the labor. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Um,
They're
yeah,
not Citibank, let's put it that way.
yeah. I mean, I can agree with that, and I mean, just to speak to the point, what I said, there are people, black folks who are descendants of chattel slavery, who, well, first of all, there are African nations, who have formally apologized, for
Yes.
their role in slavery. So that's a
I
thing.
believe Kenya was one of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kenya. I want to
I
say
think
Ghana
Kenya
too.
actually paid reparations to a huge amount of families in Kenya. I believe in 98, they came
Okay.
out and said, whoops, like we might have actually sold some of your people, our bad. And they paid out.
I didn't know about that, but I don't
I
doubt it
don't, it
either.
wasn't a lot. They paid like very little. It was like $150 or something, equivalent. But I mean, I guess in Kenya, that's probably a lot. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, but the point is there are nations who have apologized for their role and that sort of thing. So it's not necessarily that any West African nations are just free from any criticism in terms of their role and everything. I think one of the things I believe is that if we, and that's a separate issue from what happened once our ancestors got here. and the institution that took place for a long time. There are people who believe that certain West African nations, owe reparations too, but the
Mhm.
fight is for it to happen in America first. And then there's also in the Caribbean, it's called CARICOM. They have a reparations bill that's going on there as well for the atrocities and slavery, shadow slavery that happened there.
Well, I
Um,
don't think people realize that a lot of slaves actually came through the Caribbean. Not
they came to the
they
Caribbean
came
first.
from Africa at one point, but they would get, I guess, traded off in the Caribbean. But yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot of
The slave
slaves
trade
from
there
the
was
Caribbean.
older than the one in America.
Right,
Yeah.
bunch of slave trade down in the Caribbean for a very long time.
Yeah, that happened there. They have a justice claim. Um, like I said, it's called CARICOM, and so that's a thing there as well. I think it's important to separate claims based on where you are. I'm not entitled to anything from the Caribbean. I'm not from the Caribbean. I'm not descendant of any slaves there, and people who are descendant of slaves there are not entitled to America's claim. So I
Right.
think it's important to separate it in that way, and um, there are probably future claims, of course, when it comes to um, African nations as well. But this is the first fight, and I think it's appropriate because if you can establish and get justice here, I think it'll have a domino effect around the world, maybe even the Caribbean.
Mhm.
And from what I've read and studied, with even regards to the Caribbean slave trade, is it was just so brutal there. Oh man.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was. In fact, this is one of my favorite things about this last election cycle was finding out that Kamala Harris's like great grandfather sold slaves.
Yeah.
It was just. I was like, I mean, of course. Like, why wouldn't it make sense that now she's going to be the vice president? Of course, this is like. It's just because we live in a clown world, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, she cares about black people. She cares about
No,
that.
she doesn't.
No, she doesn't. She would sell your ass in a heartbeat. In fact, she did it when she was in California as a lead
Absolutely.
prosecutor. She kept people in prison to use for slave labor. She absolutely
She did
thinks
it. Yeah.
just garbage. Like, she doesn't care. People don't matter to her. And,
She's a
um,
clown. So
she's a
get out of here
clown.
with your
And she's going to be the president, which is
AK.
terrifying.
Yeah, she is. Biden's not gonna last another term, in my opinion.
No,
And
Biden doesn't
you
know who
know,
the fuck he is. Pardon my
this
French, but he doesn't.
yeah. This is the grooming that's
Mhm.
taking place because you know what? When she ran in California, she was rejected. Nobody wanted her. She
No, she
lost.
didn't even get a single delegate.
Yeah, she lost. And when she ran, of course, in the Democratic primary, um, she lost miserably and
Mhm.
dropped out of the race. So that's
Yeah,
who she is, and she is not an American descendant of slavery. So you
she
have
is
people like,
too. She's an American descendant of a slave trader.
well, yeah,
Although he wasn't in America, he slave traded to America, but whatever.
but yeah, she and Obama and
So she should be writing a big old check, is what I'm getting at.
yeah, and she's a clown, and with your Chuck Taylors and pearls and all this nonsense surrounding her. And she directly said that you know she wasn't going to do anything specific with regards to black people. And let's be real. I mean, she identifies more with her Indian side of the family, her mother's side, than
Well,
anything
she
else.
always had when she was sworn
Yeah,
into the U.S. Senate the first time. It was she's the first female Indian.
right.
Actually, I think first Indian, but also from that descendant of India, sworn
Yeah.
in, and then all of a sudden, now she's going to be VP. It's first black VP and female, and I'm like, wait a minute, what is this whole jumping around bullshit? Like,
Yeah.
come on now.
Yeah, she flip flops.
You married to a white boy, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, she irritates me,
She's
but
so
it's
she's so problematic. I mean,
she
but
is going to be the president. And that's the thing. Like, all these people are like, well, Trump might run again, and he might. I personally don't think he should, honestly.
I don't think he
But
should, but I think he will.
I think he will.
I
But
don't think he's gonna win though.
I mean, in all honesty, she'll be the president by then. I'm almost guaranteeing that,
Yeah.
right? I'm 95% certain she'll be president, Harris, by the time the election comes around. And I'm almost pretty certain that a wet paper sack could kick her ass in an election cycle because everyone fucking hates her. But rightfully so. Even Democrats are like, get out of here with
Yeah.
your nonsense, you know?
I mean, this is the woman in California who, came up with this like truancy law. So if a child
Yeah, I
missed
want to throw a
school,
single mom in prison
yeah,
over
she wanted to throw them
fucking.
in jail if the child missed school. Like, she is so problematic, such a clown. Like,
It's irritating too. They could have had Tulsi. They
she
at
what
least
now?
had some. They could have had Tulsi. They could have had Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh
They
yeah,
had some smart people. They had some. Look, I don't agree with all her. Actually, I barely agree with any of her policies. But I mean, realistically, what she was capable of doing as president was all the stuff I liked about her. Right? Everything else would require Congress and the Senate.
yeah.
So her very, very vocal anti-war stuff. She was pro reparations, right? She was pro trying to heal a wound. I liked all these things about her. These are all things that she could have had some sway over. I
She
liked
didn't do
about
it.
her, but then all the shit that I didn't like about her, she didn't have no fucking sway over. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
she would have been president, she wouldn't have no sway over it. I mean, other than I'd like to see these things happen, but whatever. Joe Biden would like to see his diaper get changed every 2 hours, and I'm sure it's every 3. I mean, it's whatever.
But the same thing we saying about her is true for the entire Congressional Black Caucus. They're all clowns. They don't advocate for Black people. They don't advocate for reparations. They don't.
They advocate for themselves and their family.
And they have, to me, they have like really. There's no reason for them to even exist. Because like really.
Well, they don't really represent Black families' interests.
No, not at all.
They just say that nonsense so they can be part of a caucus, get another $5,000 a year or whatever the fuck it is. And just say nonsensical shit on Twitter and piss people off.
They're all Democrats. They have no Republican members.
I don't think they'd let a Republican in.
Members, nothing. I mean,
yeah,
just a bunch of clowns. In the same way that Black Lives Matter, the organization is, y'all raised $90 million last year, and what are you doing for Black
people? They're buying houses, man.
Yeah, the founder, did she just? I'm trying to remember. I think I read
she went on a shopping spree.
Yeah, she owns like 2-3 homes.
4.
Patrice
4 houses.
Yeah, you buying all these houses and doing your thing. But what are you doing? And then when they posted a few months ago, this whole thing, Dance Us Free, you put up this, you have these activities and this thing where you want Black people around the world to do the electric slide with you. So absolutely ridiculous. Dance Us Free. And but you raised $90 million last year. What are you doing for Black folks with all that money? What happened to all the money? So it's so absolutely ridiculous.
Most people don't know this. So for anyone that watches this that doesn't know this, the majority of quote unquote nonprofits are a straight up scam.
Yeah.
It's designed 100% to make the top 50 people that are involved super wealthy. It doesn't do dick. Like Greenpeace is a joke. One of the founders of Greenpeace straight up left.
Greenpeace
they went all,
goodness.
They went all fucking nonsensical. Like right now, if you go to a Greenpeace advocate and you say, hey, we have a technology that'll absolutely be able to power the entire planet at zero emissions upon production of electricity. Would you be in favor of it? They'll say yes. And then you go, it's nuclear. They'll say no. They're full of shit. You know what I mean? They're full of shit. All these people are full of shit. You got the Red Cross out there, like openly admitting 12 cents of every dollar that they collect actually goes to help people.
Right.
The rest is all administration. It's bullshit. It's like, come on.
That I do know about. Yeah. I mean, most of the money goes to a bunch of bureaucracy.
That's the majority of these outfits. The majority of these quote unquote nonprofits just go to garbage, Like I don't know. I'm sure you're familiar with Candace Owens, right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Okay. Well, she called out Kimberly Klasick for saying that
Oh,
she
I
just ran a
saw that.
fraud,
I
right?
posted about it. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. So I looked into it, right? And I mean, I don't know if it's actually true, but I can kind of see where Candace was coming from in the argument of you raise up all these millions of dollars, you've got a $300,000 a year salary to run this thing, and then you run for Congress in a district you know you won't win. Like,
Yes, she
it
ran
kind of
against
seems
Kwame and
fraudulent.
Time. Yeah.
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
well, here's the thing. Candace, I watched that whole beef on Twitter. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it was kind of heartbreaking me to see two black conservative women. And I say it usually with Candace, um, going at it, going
Yeah, I
at it.
don't know that conservative describes her.
Yeah, and but you know what? Kim did an interview, and I saw it on Facebook. I listened to it. She explained a lot of the accusations that Candace was against her. So I lean more on her side because Candace Owens attacked her personally, and she
Mm-hmm.
does this routinely to get
Well,
attention.
she attacked her because she was a stripper, and I'm like, so
Yeah,
what?
she attacked her because she used to be a stripper, okay, and she attacked her husband. Kim and her husband are actually separated now. Um, Her husband's a CPA there in the city and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I when I listened to Kim's response to Candace, I was like, okay. But the thing is, the things that Candace accused her of were personal. It was
Yeah.
so childish. You're talking about this woman's
Well, that's
husband.
kind of how she's been like running her show though for a couple of years now, right?
She wants to
She
run for
runs the
president.
personal side. She doesn't attack people like just strictly politically, strictly ideologically. She attacks on the personal side to get a rise out of people.
Because she's not able to do it, you know.
Well, that's why people call her a drifter. That's why.
And she was on Joe Rogan's show few months ago,
Yeah,
whenever it was.
I watched that
Did you
episode.
see the one where she talked about global warming and that thing? And I
I
mean,
didn't see that one. No.
oh, you got to check it
Last
out.
time I saw it was Candace Owens. I saw her like 2 years, 3, 4. I don't remember. A couple of years back when she was on Rogan, when they still called her red pill, blue pill girl or something, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah, well, Candace is a phony, first of all, because first of all, you want to sit up here and act like racism is a thing of the past and all this nonsense. When you
When
enlisted,
she specifically actually had like a governor's son come after her one time with a bunch of bullshit, according to her. And I mean, this is true story. It's a true fucking story. You can look it up. This
yeah,
happened. These boys got arrested. You know.
okay, but she enlisted the NAACP to help her sue the school, and she
According to
won.
her, she didn't. They came to her. But the point is, you still follow through with it.
You still follow through with it, whether or
Yeah,
not
you didn't go, I'm a duck, right?
you still cash the check, okay? At the end of the
Exactly.
day,
As
yeah,
Hotep Jesus is saying, you still got your bag.
yeah, you still cash the check at the end of the day. So she's just a liar and a grifter. I mean, this
She got
girl
her
was,
reparations.
yeah, she did, and just not that long before Donald Trump ran in 2016 in the primary race. Candace, you were writing articles speculating about Donald Trump having a small penis.
Yeah.
So I'll say this with regards to her, she's a phony. I don't even think Candace believes half the stuff she says. She just does it to grift because you were just talking about him having a small penis, and then he wins the GOP primary and ends up winning the presidency. So all of a sudden, you're visiting the White House and all this stuff and calling him the greatest president ever and all this nonsense. So she's just a walking contradiction
Yeah.
because what Candace Owens has figured out is that it's easier for her to grift on the right than the left because she got too much competition on the left. So
Oh,
she
yeah.
shifted. Yeah, she shifted. And now all of a sudden you're a black conservative Republican. Brexit was a complete failure. You didn't shift any minds over to the right wing. I mean, she's a clown, and it's really interesting and funny to watch her go at it and everything because she's in complete grift mode. You don't
Well,
even
she
believe
also
half
went
the shit
after
you say.
Nicole Arbor and said some shit. I don't know. She was on Tim Pool's show the other day,
Yeah.
like a week ago. I did watch that, and she was talking about that stuff. She talked about the Kimberly Klasick thing. She talked about the Nicole Arbor thing, and Kimberly Klasick's actually been on Tim Pool's show a couple of times, right? She's
Yeah.
been on there like a couple times, and I would not be surprised if she doesn't show back up on there pretty soon
Kim or
because
Candace?
Kimberly.
Okay.
Because Candace went after her, called her out on Tim Pool's show, and Tim Pool's got, I mean, fuck, I don't know, he's got like 4 channels. They all have like 1 million subs, I don't know, whatever, right?
Yeah, but
I'm sure there's overlap, but it
yeah.
would not be right to me if Tim Pool didn't like basically immediately reach out to Kimberly Klasick and go, hey man, the stuff got said about you on the show. Do you want to come defend yourself? Whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the thing is, like I said, she personally attacked Kim, and she called Kim out supposedly for hiring a Democrat to help with her campaign in Baltimore, where she is. Here's
Why
the
the
thing.
hell wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the accusations that Candace hurled against her, and Kim explained that well. And she was like, I mean, basically, this is where I live. And she didn't just hire a Democrat, she also hired Republicans too. So
I think she's just mad because Kimberly's hotter than her. Let's be honest. I'm just saying. I think that's what it is.
I think so too.
She's like, oh, she's stealing all my Black Thunder, and she's way hotter than me, and now I gotta attack her. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, and they went
because then she attacked Nicole Arbor too, and I'm like,
yeah, she did.
Now you going after her because she's hotter? I don't understand. Why you always only attack hotter chicks?
Well,
well, she doesn't. She really just attacks everyone, but she really goes after the quote unquote conservative women that are really taking up some thunder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she doesn't want anybody to steal her thunder or any of that. Kim ran a good campaign when she ran, and she's going to run again. She did her thing. I don't agree with her.
She increased their poll in votes by I want to say I think she tripled it over the primary, and the primary was she doubled over the primary prior to that of what the last candidate had done. So she got on the ballot as the Republican nominee with double what the previous Republican was able to acquire. And then she increased from her primary votes threefold again. Now, granted, yeah, she lost by big margins, but come on, they knew that was going to happen. But they did not lose by the margins that most people expected.
Right.
So she made ground. She gained ground. I think give her another run. I mean, you might actually have a straight up firefight on your hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's running again, and the things that were said, and then she was a stripper and all this on nonsense.
So what?
From Ken,
how does that matter? Why do Republicans do that?
It's a legal occupation.
100%. Well, I think prostitution should be legal if it's consenting adults, but that's a libertarian argument. Then you're not libertarian. I mean, you're libertarian leaning, I can tell, but
I honestly agree with that. My Christian behind agrees with that because it's your body. You can't sit up here and argue your body, your choice when it comes to abortion, things like that, but then be against, prostitution, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's nonsensical.
That's a conflict.
All these people going, oh, it's your body, your choice, but no, you're not allowed to make pornography. You're also not allowed to be a prostitute or a lady of the night or whatever. Yeah. I know you wouldn't because
I never do it, but hey, that's what you want to do as a woman.
Hey, my outlook on this is simple. Yeah. If she was a stripper, right? This is me. Okay, I used to be a Republican. I went libertarian. So I'm one of the shifters. I'm the opposite direction of most libertarian or most Republicans. Were either on the left and then went to the right, or they were libertarians and then, as they say, grew up and became a Republican.
Yeah.
I was a Republican and then shifted to libertarians because I saw a shift in the Republican Party that I did not like, because we had Kelsey
Yeah.
Grammer and Mitch McConnell and John McCain's the nominee, and then Mitt Romney, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? So I'm out,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
just bounced. I did vote for Donald Trump in 2020.
I didn't vote for him either time. I did.
I voted for him in 2020 mainly because I was
I
like, I
voted
don't
for.
want Kamala Harris to be the president.
I voted for gosh, now I can't remember his
Joe
name.
Jorgensen. Oh, I think my Wi-Fi's goofing with me. It is goofing with me. We talked about something that pissed off the overlords.
Oh, there you go.
My Wi-Fi just went spotty on me for
Can you
some
hear
reason.
me?
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I got you. Just my Wi-Fi went spotty for some reason. I apologize for that. Okay, are we back? Hello? Hello? Are you there? I cannot hear you. Shit. Well, anyway, she should be back in just a moment. She sent me a private chat there to let me know that she was going to jump out and come back. For whatever reason, the audio on her end has been a little goofy, so she should be back in just a moment. So I don't know, hang tight, I guess. We'll get her back and then finish out our conversation. Though we are getting close to the end here, so apparently my computer knew it, timing me out, saying, no, 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 no. What are you doing? Why are you still taking all this time? Well, maybe she's coming back. I don't know. We'll see. See if she pops back in. We'll give her a couple of minutes and see what happens here. Well, maybe she's having trouble. I don't know. Maybe that was it. Maybe the trouble was on her end. Who knows? We'll get it figured out and get it taken care of here in a minute. There she is. Are you back?
I am. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
I don't know what happened, but yeah.
I don't know either. My said I had a bad connection and I jumped Wi-Fi and then you couldn't hear me anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you, and then I had to go back out and come back in. But yeah, when it comes to like Candace or that whole situation, like I said, she's a grifter. She's doing her thing, and so are others. You know, and
see, and I don't actually have a problem with that. Like, and they're like, "Oh, they're a grifter." I'm like, I don't care, whatever. I mean, if they figured out a way to get people to give them money,
I laugh about how she manipulates and does her thing, grifts when it comes to the far right to get money, get them to buy her book and all this stuff. I mean, there's a certain part of me that like admires the grift, but it's just like I'm just not willing to sell my soul in that way. However,
I mean, isn't she like, what is she, like 30? She like 30, right?
She's not even 30.
Oh. I ain't buying no book from someone that was written like before they were 30. Like maybe back in the 1800s, but now I'm like, you're a fucking baby. Like I don't need you. I don't need your.
And
shit.
She wants to run for president. She said this on Twitter. And I'm like, girl, you're not ready. I'm telling you, when you go and look at her interview on Joe Rogan's show
Mhm.
about specifically about global warming, that topic. I mean, she just goes all giggly, stupid white girl on it. She's like, he's like, well, why do you support it? She's like, oh, I don't know. I mean, it's
She
so
doesn't know because
ridiculous.
she's just been told that it's like a thing, and she's like, I haven't even looked into it. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
but
Like
yet
when they
you,
made this shift, this is one of the things that I always run into is that they made this shift and they stopped calling it global warming. They started calling it climate change, right?
yeah, yeah,
And all these people are like, well, they shifted. Now they don't call it that. And I'm like, of course they don't call it that. That'll completely screw their grift if places get colder. And it's nonsensical to people, you know.
she's a
So of
complete
course they have to call it
ditz,
something
and
else.
she's a complete ditz in that conversation. Though, like she's like, I don't know, I just don't like it. That's not. It's like a man. I'm like, wow, why would you? Even if I was invited to a show where I talked about the same topic, I wouldn't go on because I don't think I know enough about it. I know more than she does, but I don't think I know enough about it to have that one-on-one conversation
I
on
think
such a
there's a
popular show.
I think there's a difference between the younger people and then the older people, especially like more. I guess I don't know the right term here, but I think at a certain age, especially if you have a lot of conversations with people, you do get to a point where you feel very comfortable just saying, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to even speak on it, so let's just leave it alone, right?
Yeah,
And she wasn't there. She was
complete
still on the
ditz.
on the freight train up. So
And
she's
he's
like,
asking
well,
her
I'll
like
just say
basic
words.
questions. He's asking her like, why don't you agree with it? And she just, I don't know, I just don't. I mean, like, so silly. It's like, what? What do you mean you just don't? You gotta have a reason for it. So otherwise you're saying that, just a bunch of talking
Yeah,
point nonsense that agree with. I'm like, why would you even I'm thinking, why would you even agree to go on a show like this about this topic that you obviously don't know much about? It was just so silly.
I 100% agree with you. Well, we are running up on an hour now,
Yes.
and we got derailed. I told you we would pre-show. It always happens. It never fails. Like, and it's not even intentional. It just happens, no matter what. Um, that said, I'm sure that we will get some comments and questions here on either the video on YouTube and or everywhere else. I'm going to put it up. Um,
Okay.
so I suppose, would you be willing to come back and
Oh,
answer some
absolutely.
questions, and we'll dig a
Yeah, and
little
I'll be better
deeper?
prepared before the next time. But absolutely.
Right
Yeah, this
on.
is
That'll be
really
awesome.
wonderful conversation.
I had a lot of fun. I knew it was going to be entertaining and interesting because I was able to talk to you on Clubhouse, and I already knew some of your perspectives. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. Let's go through it again. Where can people find you so they can get your opinion on things? Read some of your work, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you stated my blog earlier, and it is conservativeintrospection.wordpress.com. So that's my blog, where I write about a lot of things, not just politics, a lot of political stuff, don't get me wrong, but also about writing fiction. Um, I'm on Clubhouse, of course, it's TK McEachin. I'm on Facebook under my name, Talitha McEachin. I'm on Twitter, TK McEachin. All of it, just reach out. As long as you're respectful and, open-minded and everything, I don't mind having a conversation, a conversation, as I call
Yeah.
it, with
I
you.
like that. Yeah.
So
Don't be calling me names and shit. Otherwise,
yeah,
we gonna
yeah,
be
yeah.
out in
I'm not doing all that. But yeah,
That's
as long
funny.
as you're respectful and we can have a conversation, I'm happy to share my views and listen to other views. You know what? And let me just say this: I love to speak with people who are not politically aligned with me. It's mental exercise. It helps keep me. It helps to keep me. Just doing the mental exercise and keep me up to date. And learning things that I don't know, or anything like
It
that. So
keeps you
I'm
on your
very,
toes.
yeah, I'm so open when it comes to that. I want to talk to more libertarians. I happen to have attended some Libertarian Party meetings here in Georgia, which has been very interesting. Um, and, as well as Republican meeting spaces and everything. So I just welcome everybody. And like I said, as long as you're respectful and don't act a fool, we're good. Listen and everything. So I'm all over social media and everything. So you can reach out. Um, and I, in particular, love to speak to people who think differently from me. You help to shape me and everything like that. So thank you so much for this space. I can't wait till the next one. Let's do it again.
Oh, it's going to be a good time. That next one, we will collaborate and we will put that together for you guys. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, shoot them to me on Twitter, wherever. That doesn't matter. Find me wherever, find her wherever, ask those questions. We'll get into it. And this has been a lot of fun. We'll talk to you all next time.